Tonight, at least 7 people have died after a ferry dock gangway collapse. This happened at the Marsh Landing Dock on Sapelo Island, that's located in McIntosh County. Here's what we know. At least 20 people went into the water when the walkway collapsed. Georgia DNR says 7 people have died, 6 others critically injured, and 2 others had to be life-flighted to the hospital. The dock collapse happened about 4:30 this afternoon.
Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me on.
Other communities in the area have been systematically destroyed. The culture has been wiped out in many ways. They have been developed practically out of existence. We now are realizing that we have a uniqueness that should be preserved and should be kept as a part of our culture.
So sweet,
Oh, child,
so sweet,
on a Sunday morning,
so sweet,
when the preacher preaches,
so sweet,
and the choir sings,
so sweet,
all night, yeah,
so sweet.
Every year, hundreds of people travel from parts of Georgia, the Carolinas, and North Florida for Cultural Day, an annual celebration of the Gullah Geechees on Sapelo Island, a tradition celebrated since the 1800s. But the 2024 celebration on October 19th turned tragic. After hours of fellowship and the consumption of Gullah Geechee culture, visitors started heading back on the ferry in groups. One of the last groups to leave the island, of at least 40 people, stood on the dock waiting to board the ferry when all of a sudden, the floor beneath, separating them from the water, collapsed, causing at least 20 people to fall in.
They're doing CPR on him. They've been doing it for like 10 minutes. Someone's dead over there, like 3 more people dead down there, at least. She's the one. He pulled them 2 out the water right there. It was like 2 other older ladies.
At approximately 3:50 this afternoon, we received an emergency call through McIntosh 911 regarding a gangway that had collapsed on the Sapelo Island Visitor Ferry Dock. Multiple agencies responded to this incident, and once we got on scene, we realized that we had possibly 20 people or more that had went into the water because of the collapse of this gangway. At this time, we're conducting an investigation. It'll be ongoing for some time to determine the cause of this incident. But as of now, we have recovered 7 victims that lost their lives because of this incident. We have 6 people who were critically injured, and we have 2 people who have been life-flighted outside to other hospitals for treatment. As I said, this is an ongoing investigation. The DNR engineering and construction team is en route to the scene to try to determine what happened. That's all we have for this evening. We thank you guys for coming out. And again, we have a press conference, full press conference at 10 a.m. in the morning.
we get your first.
We're not answering any questions.
We're not taking questions first.
Is it 20 people that had gone into the water total?
We're not answering any questions tonight regarding that. My first name is Chris, last name Hodge, Hodge.
Okay, and you are captain with the DNR.
Captain with DNR Law.
Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all very much for your time.
Thank you.
See you at 10 tomorrow.
Live in McIntosh County, this tragedy has reached all the way to the White House.
Yeah, that's certainly right, Greg. President Biden responding to this incident. We're going to get to his quote in just a moment, but I want to recap real quick on the basic details of this event. Again, 7 people, at least 7 people have dead, 6 people critically injured. 2 of those were life-flighted out. I spoke with the Sheriff's Office chaplain, Lee Brandt, here in McIntosh County. He tells me that when that gangway collapsed, and the gangway is really a walkway from Sapelo Island itself onto a dock much lower. He said when the collapse happened, there were 40 people on that gangway that fell into the water. Obviously, lots of injuries in this. The president, as you mentioned, Greg, responding tonight in his statement, He says, quote, "My team is in touch with state and local officials, and we stand ready to provide any and all assistance that would be helpful to the community." And let me tell you, this has been a major operation. It is 11:45 now. It is quiet. But let me tell you, that quiet has just kind of come in the last 20 or so minutes. There were hundreds of law enforcement officers from multiple jurisdictions. Glenn County, I saw troopers. GEMA was out here. Homeland Security, GEMA and State Homeland Security was out here. This was a massive operation that we're going to be talking about a lot more.
If you're just joining us, we continue to follow some breaking news out of McIntosh County. At least 7 people have died after the collapse of a fairway dock gangway. This happened at the Marsh Landing Dock on Sapelo Island. And that's where we find WJCL 22 News' Andy Cole has been there all evening. Andy, this is a story that continues to develop, investigation going on right now. But one of the fascinating and painful things that you said earlier in your last chat with us, that on that walkway, there were up to 40 people at one point.
Yeah, and that's according to the McIntosh County Sheriff's Office chaplain. I was speaking with him earlier about the efforts underway to reunify family members with victims of this incident. But Greg, I'm here at the Elm Grove Baptist Church. That's where that reunification happened. But really this became the kind of incident command, if you will, of all the things happening, getting people back to safety and back to their families. I spoke with the pastor and he talked about just the immense amount of community support that came incredibly quickly. And that's important in these situations because the resources are needed and they need it absolutely right now. The pastor told me that a total of 7 churches came out to support alongside several local businesses who donated food and other materials like that. There were folks that came to help and support bus drivers to help bus people from this reunification site over to where their cars were parked a couple miles down the road. There were nurses who came to help others and get them better. I talked to them. They told me that as far as injuries are concerned for here, they only treated minor injuries, but of course this was a very serious situation. And even late into the night as things were starting to calm down, I walked inside the church. They had opened their doors for the first responders to take a breather. A lot of them had taken off their bulletproof vests to kind of relax for a moment because they went through an immense undertaking tonight. I want to let you hear from that pastor now.
We don't play how difficult it is because this is a tragedy, because a number of them are waiting yet to see if loved ones or friends that they came with survived. Therefore, I'm always offering hope, not preaching, but offering love, hope, and a little comfort on top of that.
And that was certainly apparent here at the Elm Grove Baptist Church. Love, hope, and compassion. People were welcomed people with open arms. Even the pastor hugging me as we were having conversations. You could tell this community is certainly hurting.
This was absolutely heartbreaking, especially for it to happen on a day of celebration of the Geechees, in an area that's really been starved out and intentionally sabotaged. The land on the island is owned by Black families, and the rest of it is owned by the government. For years, though, the government and these corporations have been working together against the Gullah Geechees in an attempt to completely take the island away from them.
In a 3-2 vote, McIntosh County Commissioners decided to change zoning code on coastal Georgia's Sapelo Island. It's a move Indigenous people say has the potential to force them out of their native land. Gullah Geechee people from Sapelo are enslaved African descendants. Their ancestors worked on island slave plantations and eventually owned the land themselves. Nearly 30 years ago, protections were put in place requiring modest homes on the island to keep the historically Black community intact. With weakened protections, Indigenous people fear outside developers will build large properties, forcing taxes to skyrocket and Black landowners to sell.
The McIntosh County Board of Commissioners and its Planning and Zoning Commission are moving forward with plans to accelerate the erasure of the Gullah Geechee community of Hog Hummock on Sapelo Island. We are watching, we see what's happening, and we will bring to bear every resource we have to protect this community.
A community of rich foundational culture that's basically been left out to dry. There's no stoplight, no school system, no grocery store on the land, no jobs for people to work, which is why many descendants had to leave the area to settle in other parts of Georgia, South Carolina, and North Florida. It's a place where the women made what they needed by hand, and the men raised the cattle, grew the crops, and fished. However, they were also faced with contamination that was not only a health hazard for the people living there, but also for anybody getting a hold of that shellfish commercially.
Estuaries are places where rivers meet the sea, and this particular estuary has global significance. In the late 60s, Congress established the National Estuarine Research Reserve System to protect places like Sapelo. It has been chosen as one of the most important environments in the world. But we still don't have a good understanding of what makes it work.
Okay, so what we don't know about microbes is how diverse they are in every ecosystem and how much of that diversity can be lost before we start losing some of those critical functions, like the ability to decompose the salt marsh or to provide nutrients for higher trophic levels.
We do know that the brackish waters in estuaries are some of the most biologically diverse systems on Earth, giving birth or homes to more than 2/3 of the fish and shellfish commercially harvested. This project and other research is designed to protect that diversity and answer concerns about what may be happening to some of the marine life in this region. We went out with Dr. Lori Schwacke, a key dolphin researcher in the area. She and her crew studied 2 groups of bottlenose dolphins, some around Sapelo and another set about 30 miles south in the Brunswick area. The levels of contaminants they found are alarming.
Some of the levels that we've seen down in Brunswick are over 2,000 parts per million. In fact, I think the highest was around 2,800 parts per million of PCBs. That's higher than's ever been measured in a marine mammal in the world.
They pulled dolphins from the water and did extensive blood work and tissue sampling. When they got back to the lab, surprise grew to shock because even the dolphins in Sapelo waters had high levels of PCBs. PCBs, or polychlorinated biphenyls, have been banned in the U.S. since the 70s. They are what is known as a legacy contaminant because they stay in the environment for so long. Brunswick has a Superfund site that is known to contain PCBs. But for dolphins in this pristine region to have high levels of this chemical indicates the impact is far more reaching than first thought.
So our research now is focused on not only determining the health impacts, but also looking at the movement of animals. We'd like to understand where the animals in Sapelo are being exposed to these PCBs.
Other communities in the area have been systematically destroyed. The culture has been wiped out in many ways. They have been developed practically out of existence. We now are realizing that we have a uniqueness that should be preserved and should be kept as a part of our culture.
So sweet, oh child, so sweet, on a Sunday morning, so sweet, when the preacher preaches, so sweet, and the choir sings, so sweet, oh yeah, so sweet, so sweet, and yeah, so sweet, hey, get happy, so sweet, and yeah, so sweet, oh religion, so sweet, ah yeah, so sweet, ah that religion, so sweet, Sunday morning. Deacon pray, preacher preach, choir sing.
The festival is trying to focus the attention of the public on the island, especially the culture. Hopefully people would think that what they've seen is worth preserving.
These islands were originally plantation communities. We were descendants of the original slaves that were basically tenders of the slave plantation itself.
I remember my great-grandmother. She would walk down the aisles in church and burst into song, and she would be reminiscing about her time as a slave. Those songs were unique to Sapelo.
Of all the slaves on this plantation, only John could read. Finally, good news. Here was a letter telling them that they were free.
Right now, there are many questions like what happened? How did the gangway collapse? Although the area is hundreds of years old, that structure is only about 3 years old. It was constructed in 2021. Georgia Governor Kemp released a statement right away on Saturday evening. President Biden did the same, and an investigation is underway. I'll bring an update whenever it's available. Sending condolences to all of the victims and their families. At least 7 people passed away, so again, sending condolences to all of those involved. And much love to the Gullah Geechees. Doesn't matter if you're still there in the area or if you moved away. No matter what happens in the future, the Gullah Geechee spirit will forever live.
We are the last Gullah Geechee, island-based Gullah Geechee community. Many people do not realize that.
Going on, and my life is almost gone.
All of the other island-based Gullah Geechees are gone. The community is threatened, and we need help to survive.
Take my hand, precious Lord, lead me on.